She thought she was married to the most honorable man in Atlanta until the cleaner saw a woman standing in his office while he was at work. What began as a trembling phone call would unravel 20 years of lies, a hidden room, and a love story written in someone else's blood. Keep watching, because revenge has a way of coming home. The call came just after 1 o'clock. "Mrs. Reynolds?" a frantic voice whispered. "Is anyone else supposed to be in the house?" I was at a design warehouse downtown, thumbing velvet samples for a client's foyer, my head full of color palettes, not danger. "No," I said. "Why?" "There's a woman upstairs," the cleaner stammered. "In your husband's office." For a second, the world flattened. "Get out," I ordered, grabbing my keys. "Lock the door, wait outside." "I'm calling 911. By the time I reached our Magnolia Lime Street, police lights were already flickering against the white columns of our house. Tanya the cleaner sat on the curb, gloves still on, eyes wide. "She was by the window," she said. "White blouse, dark hair." "I thought she was you." 2 officers emerged minutes later. "We've checked every room, Mrs. Reynolds. No one inside." No forced entry. But Tanya's voice shook. It wasn't a shadow. When the squad car rolled away, silence spilled over the lawn, too perfect, too posed. Inside, the foyer smelled like lemon wax and something else, something off, like the air after a storm. I climbed the stairs, passing framed smiles that suddenly looked rehearsed. At the end of the hall, Adam's office door stood ajar. His desk was neat, papers aligned. But a porcelain cup still steamed on the corner, Earl Grey, his favorite. He'd been gone since morning. Beside the window sat a gold locket. I recognized it instantly, the one I gave him for our 10th anniversary. Inside was our engraving, D+A. Only the date was wrong, 2 years earlier. 2 years before we even met. A thin scratch scarred the clasp. Fresh. I opened the security app. Every camera live except one, Adam's office. Disabled for exactly 90 minutes that afternoon. Access code, his. Outside, a black sedan idled briefly across the street, then rolled away without plates. I stood in the empty hallway, the locket cold in my palm, realizing for the first time that beauty can be a form of camouflage. My life had looked perfect, the award-winning designer wife, the respected attorney husband, 2 grown children who still called on Sundays. But underneath the symmetry, something was rotting. Adam and I had built a marriage on quiet habits, his black coffee at dawn, my white wine at dusk. We shared evenings without words, peace that felt like distance disguised as comfort. I told myself that was maturity. Maybe it was just fatigue. Then came the small signs. Late nights, cancellations, a hotel charge in Savannah, a receipt from a jewelry store. No anniversary in sight. When I asked about his retreat, he smiled too smoothly. "Charleston," he said, but the bill said Savannah. That lie was the first thread I pulled, and the whole life began to unravel. The house had started to speak in strange ways, footsteps when I was alone, perfume that wasn't mine. He called it imagination. I called it intuition. And intuition never lies. That night, after he fell asleep, I found a blank subject email on our shared computer. One line, "Thank you for the weekend," no signature. No attachments. Sent Sunday 10:47 p.m., the night he returned from work. I printed it, folded it into my planner like a confession no one else would ever see. Days later, I smelled that same perfume again, powdery gardenia on his scarf. Not mine. Never mine. That was when fear became focus. When the police declared our house clear, I knew they were wrong. Because truth doesn't hide in shadows, it hides in plain sight, smiling back at you across the dinner table. And I was finally ready to see it. I didn't confront him, not yet. I wore the good wife smile like silk and called the only person I trusted to speak without trembling, Sloane Avery, retired lit teacher with a voice like velvet over steel. I told her about the disabled camera, the steaming tea, the wrong date engraved inside the locket, the perfume that haunted the air in rooms I'd already cleaned twice. She listened, breath steady, then said the one thing that settled my heartbeat into a colder rhythm. Collect your truth quietly. Men like Adam don't confess. They curate. The next morning I reached out to someone I'd hoped I would never need, Cole Mercer, a PI whose gaze makes people fix their posture. We met at a corner table of a quiet cafe. No suit, black watch, a notebook he didn't open. "Tell me what you want to know," he said. "Everything," I said. "Where he goes. Who he sees. What he believes, I'll never see." He held my eyes for 3 seconds, long enough to calibrate the temperature of my resolve, then nodded. "Give me a week." I handed him a thin folder, copies of bank statements, calendar screenshots, a photo of the locket with the wrong date, and a printout from our security app with that 90-minute blackout. When he left, a silent wind rushed the door like the room exhaled. I spent the week moving through the house like a hush. I set the table. I fluffed pillows. I placed a pear in a porcelain bowl and watched late sun catch the glaze. The ordinary can be a form of camouflage, too. At night, I listened to the keystroke metronome from his office and imagined each tap as a tiny nail hammered into a coffin made of someone else's name. On Thursday at 4:12 p.m., Cole called. "Pattern," he said. "Your husband leaves the courthouse on Wednesdays at 30:40, avoids the freeway, and parks off DeKalb, old brick building. He stays inside an hour, no touch on exit. He looks tense on entry. Tense with whom? Woman, mid-50s, dark hair, neutral clothes, elegant in the unadvertised way. I ran the plate. Elise Ward. No spouse on record, no criminal file. Financially quiet. The name slid through my ribs like a cool blade. Is it an affair? I don't think so. The body language is all gravity, no heat, he said. He keeps distance. She does too, like they're negotiating a ghost. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed, palms pressed to my thighs. There is a moment in every old house when the AC kicks and the vent exhales, a shiver you can't blame on weather. That's what moved through me. Not dread, alignment. Saturday morning, Adam appeared in my studio with white orchids and a performance-ready smile that never reached his eyes. "I've been thinking," he said lightly, that good lawyer music in his voice. "We haven't honored our anniversary in years. Let's fix that. Next weekend dinner, catered, we'll light the garden. Invite my partners, some friends, maybe even the kids can fly in. Invite an audience, set the stage. Control the story." "It'll be beautiful," I said, turning the swatch of storm blue velvet in my hand so he couldn't see the way my mouth wanted to betray me. "I'll handle the table." That night, the house glowed like a magazine photograph. Champagne and flutes, strings under the oak, laughter diffused by bistro lights. Adam moved among them, judges, donors, friends from law school shaking hands, quoting Yeats at precisely the right volume, reciting our history like a vow everyone already knew by heart. For 3 hours we played ourselves. At 9003, my phone buzzed in my clutch. Unknown number. "He's not cheating the way you think. She's living in your house." The words turned the floor to water. I looked up at Adam where he stood beside the jazz trio, tapping his ring against the stem of his glass, eyes skating over the crowd as if searching for an absence. He lifted the flute toward me. "Smile." I did. It felt like lifting a car. After the last guest left and the garden lights clicked off, I lay awake beside him, counting breaths, watching the ceiling learn the pale geometry of moonlight, and thought, if she's living in my house, then the footsteps were never ghosts and the perfume never memory. I waited until his breathing dropped into the heavy rhythm of a man who believes he's safe, then slid from the bed. I started in the basement and let the house tell me what it had swallowed. Old laundry room, cool cement smell, nothing. Wine closet, stale cork and oak, nothing. Guest rooms, museum clean, the kind of quiet that means no one has slept there in months. But when I reached his office, The air changed, cooler than the hall by a degree you feel at the teeth. The room was orderly, the kind of order that overcompensates. I stepped behind his desk and ran my fingertips along the paneled wall where the built-in shelves met mahogany. The seam looked like molding. It felt like a secret. Beneath the shelf was a keyhole the size of a freckle. Sloane's voice moved through me like a hand at my spine. "Don't rush the reveal. Prepare the stage." I texted Cole, "I need you quiet tools. Tonight." He came dressed in the kind of black that eats light. Inside the house, his footsteps had the manners of a cat. "You sure?" he whispered, kneeling to the lock. "I can't sleep on the other side of a door anymore." A click, a sigh, and the panel released. We pulled it open to a narrow, dark artery in the wall. The air that slipped out smelled like closed cabinets, the sweet, stale geometry of time. The pocket room was 10 feet deep and 2 decades wide. A vanity waited against the far wall, a thin sheet of dust turned silver by our flashlight beam. On it, a regiment of perfume bottles, some half evaporated, others sealed under a skin of years. A silver-backed brush lay on its side, dark strands caught in its teeth like small shadows. A jewelry box gaped softly, its velvet tray faded to a winter blue. Across from it, a row of dresses, the kind the city's rich women wore when champagne was still a verb, hung in a tidy line, hems hovering like a chorus. Cole panned the beam across framed photographs on a shelf. The first one nearly took my legs. Adam, 10, maybe 15 years younger, stood with his arm around a woman laughing into his shoulder. Dark hair, almond eyes. A posture I recognized because I wore it in photos from a life that now felt borrowed. For a breath, I thought it was me. It wasn't. It was me in a parallel where my name had been written with a different hand. "Jesus," Cole murmured. "She could be your twin." I picked up another photo, Adam and the woman on a sunyard stoop that could have been our porch if you scraped off 20 years. On the back, a neat script, home, no date. The ink had the fragile look of something you'd kept too long under soft paper. On the vanity sat a small music box of inlaid wood. I wound it once. The melody rose, a slow, haunted lullaby that seemed to remember other rooms. Inside the lid, a name engraved so delicately it could have been a bruise, Elise Ward. Cole's voice came low, the way people speak in sanctuaries. "That's the woman he meets on Wednesdays." I stood very still as the parts of my life found each other, magnets across years. The disabled camera, the steaming cup, the perfume that insisted on existing. The locket with a date before I was even written into Adam's story. "This isn't an affair," I said. The words tasted metallic. "It's a museum, a shrine," Cole said. He swept the beam down. Someone preserved her in a pause. We searched with gloved care drawers, hat boxes, the tiny trinket dishes women use to keep rings near a sink they don't want to scratch. In a folded silk scarf, I found a single instant photograph, edges yellowed, Adam and Elise in front of a house too familiar. The porch was bare then, our ivy hadn't learned to climb. In the bottom margin, the handwriting again, home, 1998. I felt something tilt into place. My past had been spliced onto someone else's blueprint. I wasn't living in his house, I was living in hers. "Why does she look like you?" Cole asked softly. "Is that the coincidence, or is that the point?" "Both," I said, though the answer was a taste I didn't want. 2 days later, Cole called from the county building, traffic noise stuttering through the line. "I need you to sit," he said. I didn't sit. "Tell me, Elise Ward wasn't some quiet companion," he said. "She was Adam's first wife." The room narrowed. "No." He told me, he told everyone, he'd never been married. "There's a certificate," Cole said, Fulton County, 1996. "And there's more. She went missing in 2003. Last seen near Tybee Island weekend away," husband said. He filed a missing persons report. Case went cold after 6 months. No body, no ruling. 2 years later, he filed for divorce citing abandonment. I had to put a hand on the wall. Cole continued, precise and merciless. Financially, Elise had assets, family trust, coastal properties. Records show Adam moved quickly into control after she vanished, renewals on the estate filings, signatures in Elise's name long after 2003. I closed my eyes. The music box's melody seemed to seep through the plaster, forged, likely. But here's the toxin in the water, a death declaration filed by her husband in 2005. Questionable clerk signature. It greased the wheels for transfers. And one more thing you won't like, his divorce from Elise? Never actually finalized. Certificate's a counterfeit. On paper, your marriage is not a marriage. The house didn't sway. I did. That night, I set dinner on the table with hands that looked steady. Adam loosened his tie and smiled like a man in a commercial for Legacy. "You're quiet," he said. "Planning centerpieces," I said, and poured him wine. After he went upstairs, I sat in his office and slid open the bottom drawer. Beneath old invoices, I found a manila envelope addressed in a slanted hand for Delia Reynolds, private. My name, written like it knew me before I did. Signature below, E. Ward. Postmarked 3 months ago. My pulse turned animal. I broke the seal. 1 page. Graceful cursive. "Delia, if you're reading this, he's already bleeding. Thank you for finishing what I couldn't. You were always meant to find the door. Don't look for me. The past belongs to him now. The future belongs to you. E." Ward, I read it 3 times, then again. 3 months ago, before the email, before the message at the party, before I even suspected, she had written to me. How did she know my name? How did she know what I would do? A tremor moved through the floorboards. I followed it down the hall to the open panel. The police hadn't sealed the hidden room yet. Inside, the music box sat on the vanity, its lid lifted by a draft I didn't feel. The tune wound itself into the air without a hand. As it turned, I heard something underneath the melody, so faint you could call it your mind trying to survive itself, a whisper caught in the mechanism, a suggestion embedded in tin and time. Truth isn't lost, Delia. It waits for the woman willing to carry it. I left the room slowly, pulse slick, palms cold, and closed the panel with the care my grandmother used on heirlooms, things that survive by being held right. In the morning, I called Cole with a new kind of voice. "It's not just infidelity or fraud," I said. "It's theater. He performs justice in public and manufactures it in private. Then we give him a better stage," Cole said, "where the audience can't be curated. So I built a production. Quietly. Elegantly. Inevitably. While Adam planned his charity gala, Fox Theater, Velvet and Gold, all the city's cameras, Cole and I assembled the dossier. Bank transfers tied to aliases, renewals of an estate in the handwriting that had sent me a letter. The missing persons report with its soft edges and heavy omissions, the counterfeit divorce. The death declaration that had never survived a real examination, and the photographs from the room the house kept behind its bones. We sealed copies in black envelopes, labeled The Silent Case. We arranged delivery to 3 places the same night the opening applause would begin, the district attorney's office, his firm's board, and a journalist I trusted with my entire life, my daughter Rowan, who could make an empire audible with a headline. I went into the hidden room one last time before the storm and put my fingers on the music box, the way a believer touches a relic, less to ask for mercy than to say, "I heard you." Then I locked the panel, not to conceal. To protect. Adam kissed my cheek that night and said, "You look radiant." "Truth is flattering under the right lights," I replied, and he smiled as if I'd recited Yeats. The Fox Theater shimmered that night like a chandelier heart beating above Atlanta gold light, velvet drapes, a jazz trio tuned to perfection. Adam's name was printed across banners in serif gold, 30 years of justice. Fitting. Justice was about to arrive in heels. He stood on stage, all polish and posture, thanking donors, quoting law like scripture. The crowd adored him. They didn't know they were watching a eulogy disguised as a toast. From the back of the room, Cole caught my eye, one hand on the tech booth controls. The black flash drive labeled "The Silent Case" glinted under stage light. My pulse matched the hum of the amplifiers. At Adam's favorite line, "Truth is the foundation of all we build," Cole pressed play. The projector flickered once, then again. The gala's slideshow dissolved into static, then reformed into a video, the wrong video. Gasps spread like sparks. First clip, Adam entering the Inman Park apartment, unaware of the hidden camera. Elisa's reflection glowed faintly in the mirror behind him. Date stamp, 2 months ago. Then documents rolled, forged signatures, marriage licenses, bank transfers, the death declaration stamped with his name. The word fraud may as well have been carved into the screen. The crowd rippled, phones rose. Whispers caught fire. Then came the final footage, grainy, warm light, a woman's voice from a forgotten camcorder. Elise on a beach, hair whipping in the wind, laughing before she said it. "If anything ever happens to me, Adam will know why." Silence slammed the theater like a verdict. Adam froze mid-sentence. This is fabricated," he barked, but his voice cracked under the roar of murmurs. He turned toward me in disbelief, like a man recognizing the bullet after it's fired. "Delia, tell them." I stood, calm as glass. "For 30 years, I said, stepping closer to the stage, "you taught this city that truth wins. Tonight, it finally does." Reporters swarmed the aisle. Security flanked the stage. 2 detectives entered, moving fast but not loud. When they read him his rights, the crowd parted like a congregation. "Delia," he whispered as they cuffed him, eyes wild. "You don't understand, she's not..." "Dead?" I asked softly. "I know." He looked shattered, half rage, half awe, before they pulled him away. By morning, headlines devoured every platform. Prominent attorney exposed in missing wife fraud case. The byline beneath the headline belonged to my daughter Rowan, the silent case, the woman who was never buried. The story went national. The empire burned quietly. The house, our house, was empty but alive with whispers. Reporters haunted the gate, neighbors dropped off casseroles like peace offerings. But I stayed inside, sealing the rooms one by one. Not in fear, just in finality. One afternoon, I unlocked the panel to Elisa's hidden room. The police had taken most of the evidence, but the air still carried her perfume, faded but distinct. I placed a single white gardenia on the vanity beside the music box and whispered, "Rest now." When I turned the key, the melody began again, low, haunting, a tune that remembered more than it should. Weeks passed. Adam remained in custody: fraud, bigamy, forgery, obstruction, and suspicion of something darker. They called it the most elegant takedown in Atlanta's legal history. I called it closure. But I was wrong. While boxing his remaining files, I found one envelope tucked under false invoices. My name on the front, looping cursive, signature below, E. Ward. Postmarked 3 months before the gala. Inside, "Delia, if you're reading this, it means he's paid the price. You were always meant to find the door. Don't look for me. The past belongs to him now. The future belongs to you." I read it 3 times, each slower than the last. She had written to me before I even suspected a thing. How did she know my name? How did she know I'd open the door? That night, I sat in the dark, the letter beside a half-drunk glass of wine. The house was too quiet. Then I heard it, the faint metallic hum of gears. I followed it down the hall. The panel stood slightly ajar. Inside, the music box was open, turning on its own, the melody soft as breath. Beneath it, something whispered through the mechanism, almost human, almost memory. "Truth isn't lost, Delia. It waits for the woman willing to carry it." I stepped back, heart folding in on itself, every hair on my skin listening. Was Elise alive? Had she been here, watching as I dismantled his empire? Or had she been guiding me all along, using my anger as the final act of her revenge? Weeks later, Rowan's article won national acclaim. She called it "The Woman Who Was Never Buried." The world saw me as the survivor, the avenger, the heroine. But sometimes I wake to the scent of gardenia blooming from nowhere, and I know better. Some stories don't end. They echo. The last package came quietly, a plain brown box with no return address. Inside, a book, The Garden by the Sea, first edition. Author, Elise Ward. The dedication read, "To the woman who opened the door I could not. You were always part of the story, even before you knew it." I closed the book slowly. Outside, the magnolias shifted in the wind, leaves brushing the windows like fingertips. Justice and revenge, truth and obsession, they had blurred until I couldn't tell which face I wore anymore. Maybe Elise hadn't vanished. Maybe she'd simply rewritten her ending through me. Because sometimes vengeance doesn't arrive screaming. Sometimes it leaves a letter. Sometimes it lives in your reflection. If you thought the truth ended here, you're wrong. Every house hides a secret, and every heart hides a stranger. Would you open the door if it meant losing everything? Tell me in the comments, because revenge doesn't end a story, it begins one.